Good evening, everyone. This is Alexis, aka the Ravenclaw Queen. Thank you guys for returning to my channel. I would love if you guys could like and subscribe. Also, please comment anything you'd love to see from my channel. I'm open to any, lifestyle, mental health, beauty, fashion, content. I'm definitely going to give you guys some travel vlogs when I travel on my next trip. I'm going to Houston, so that'll be exciting. So keep up. I'll actually be in Houston at the same time that Beyonce is dropping her Act 2 of Renaissance. So it's going to be great. Anyway, so today we're kicking off our Maniac Mondays, which is probably going to be my favorite series. I'm going to be telling my story in chronological order of how I discovered what I was going through with my mental health. And I would love to advocate, learning about mental health and how it affects you and everything. So yeah, I'm excited to tell my story. So let's just start from the beginning. Um, I mentioned in my other video that I have anxiety, bipolar disorder, and depression. So from a young age, I was actually very outgoing. My mom said today that I actually, love to talk to strangers. I love to participate in class. I was very active, with school in general, and church as well. I love to get in front of people when I was really young, and we do like Easter speeches, things like that. So I never was afraid. I think as I got a little older, like around 9 or 10 years old, I remember developing breast, and I just felt so self-conscious about it. And like, I was kind of a chubby kid. I was gonna insert a photo, but I really cannot find any like photos of me from when I was like 8 or 9 for some reason. I might have some in my, we have a little album, so I was looking to see if I can find some. I know we went on a vacation with my grandfather when I was like 8 to Busch Gardens in Virginia, and we did take a lot of pictures. So I'll see if I can find something from there. But yeah, I was kind of a chubby kid, and I remember like my family members, friends in the neighborhood, they would always kind of pick on me. So that's when I started getting very like anxious about how I looked and not really like knowing how to approach people and feel like comfortable with other people. So that continued to develop. And then when I was 10, I moved from Fort Lawn, which is, where I'm from, to Fort Mill, which is in the suburbs. I would say Fort Lawn was pretty diverse compared to Fort Mill. Like we had, Hispanic kids, black kids, white kids, Asian kids. Like we had almost everything in each class. But my first class in Fort Mill Elementary, I was the only black kid. There was a mixed kid in the class. No Hispanic kids at all. The rest, everyone was white. And I remember feeling so out of place. Like I was already the new kid, and then I was already self-conscious about how I looked. So then just being like, feeling like I stuck out just made it worse. So like fifth grade, honestly, I don't remember it being a fun time at all. I also felt like they were trying to diminish my intelligence. At Louisville Elementary, where I was at previously, I was in all of the GT classes, as we call it, gifted and talented. When I got to Fort Mill, it was like, well, we need to see all your test scores and everything. I don't know, just stuff that I didn't think I'd have to deal with. Like I was getting all of the awards for reading the most books and everything, but it was just like not enough for them. I was even in the math GT, but they wouldn't put me in the language for some reason. But yeah, so then going into sixth grade, I wasn't in GT at all. I don't know what happened with that, but apparently my scores never, either they weren't enough or they didn't translate over. So I was in what they called like just regular classes, which I didn't have a problem with that, but I did feel like I was a little bit more advanced than some of my classmates, which is fine though. I made some of my best friends in those classes, but I also made some enemies. And this is kind of where I'm going to start with like where I started to feel depressed about myself. So there was this one particular girl, my close friends are going to know who I'm talking about. Um, she was mixed. She was really pretty. I remember she had like the smoothest skin. I was always wondering like what kind of lotion she used. I think it was like Bath and Body Works. But anyway, I remember one time she would just pick on me randomly too. And she talked about how my hands are like wrinkled, which if you look at my hands, they are kind of wrinkled, but like I don't know, I thought everyone kind of had some wrinkles in their hand. And then like for some reason my mom, when I was younger, she wouldn't buy me like real bras. She would buy like those little like, they were kind of like sports bras, trainer bras. And I remember the girl being like, I'm not gonna say her name, but I remember her being like, why are you wearing that bra? Your boobs look saggy. Like she literally said I had saggy boobs, even though I barely had boobs. And I just remember feeling like so upset about it. And I just felt really ugly and like unattractive and like um I don't know, I already felt kind of out of place. I was just really starting to make friends, and then she just made everything worse. So then after that, I remember coming home and just being really upset about it. I remember not wanting to get on the bus either. Now, she didn't ride my bus, but I just didn't want to go to school in general. Like, I was just like, ugh, don't want to go. So I kind of would like come home and like do my homework and like seclude myself. The only time I really like felt comfortable is like with my family and just um finding things to watch, or like, I don't know, feeling like I kind of had to hide from everyone because I just was not in a good place. And I know a lot of people deal with that in middle school. Like, it's just a tough time for kids going through puberty and everything. And I also got my period at a young age. Like, I was 10 going on 11. And it actually happened the day after Michael Jackson died, which is why I remember it so vividly, because it's like me and my family were in Orlando for a family vacation, and we were watching on BET when they announced that he died. And then the next day we came home from vacation, and then I got my period, and I remember calling my mom like, I'm bleeding. Like, I was so like, I was dramatic, but it was funny. Well, now it's funny. But yeah, I think I was just going through a lot, sixth grade. And then like I even like had like thoughts of just like disappearing, running away. Like, it was really bad. I really should have talked to someone about it at the time. So I feel like even at my big age now, like there's moments where I should have talked to someone. um but anyway, so that kind of happened. And then seventh and eighth grade got a little different because the girl that was the bully to me, she moved. So she moved to a whole different, I don't even know where she moved to, but she moved. And I felt like this relief, because I didn't have to deal with her anymore. And then I made a Facebook, I think it was eighth grade. I know I got a cell phone in seventh grade, I want to say. So when I made my Facebook in eighth grade, I started reconnecting with people from Louisville, like friends I had that I hadn't talked to in a long time. And it was really nice. Like, I felt like I was making more friends, like I was being more social again. Um, Seventh grade, I also joined mock trial team, which if you guys don't know, mock trial is like, it's an after school club, and we competed against other middle schools. And it's basically like where they have witnesses and attorneys, and we have people who are they're acting as witnesses. And I always played an attorney because I never wanted to be an actress. So I always, wanted to study the law. That's where I got into wanting to be a lawyer. So I started to be more confident because it's like, ooh, I had an after school activity to do now. Like, I'm not just going home after school, like I feel important. Like, I have a team that I'm working with. So I just started to really grow and develop seventh grade. And then eighth grade got even better because it was like guys started to notice me, which that was good, but also bad because I didn't really like the attention at the time. Like, I was used to just being in my shell. And I also discovered in middle school that I like I was attracted to women, which I didn't really know how to deal with those like emotions because I'm heavily involved with my church, and I've always been a Christian. And like, they don't want, or I'm not gonna say they don't want you to, but at the time it was like, oh, that's a sin, like you're gonna go to hell because you like women, basically. So I never told anyone at the time, like that's how I felt. So I was very conflicted about my feelings. And I will say that I'm bisexual now, but at the time I really just didn't know. And I did get a boyfriend in eighth grade, so that changed a lot of things. I was with that guy for like 2 years ish. And then after that, everything just seemed to be going up, going into high school. And I definitely felt like those previous feelings of like being bullied and like, oh, I just want to disappear. Definitely by the time I was in high school, that went away. But then it changed into something different. So high school is really where I saw my anxiety like explode, kind of. So for example, like I said, I was in mock trial in middle school, so I went into mock trial in high school. And being a freshman on the team, it was very hard to adjust to having very seasoned veterans, I would call them, who knew like the laws and they knew how to object. They knew how to present their arguments in a very like immaculate way to me at the time. And I'm shout out to Mr. Fitz. I don't know if he's gonna watch this video, but shout out to him. He was a great mock trial coach, and my other teachers who helped, Miss Lisk, like just great role models that I had, who encouraged me as well when I didn't feel like I belonged and didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. I always had someone. And in my senior year of high school, I actually became the mock trial captain. So that's how you know, like over time, I did grow and develop, even though I had a lot of anxiety, getting up in front of people and like, arguing my cases and everything. But mock trial was one area. I was also in FBLA. So I started FBLA in my 10th grade year. FBLA is Future Business Leaders of America. And it had a lot of different areas where you could compete in, basically. So my first year, I competed in the global, or it was like emerging global business area. So I was on a team with my cousin Dakaya. Shout out to Dakaya. She's great. So we were on a team together, and I remember like I don't know why, but we were just playing around. Honestly, we were also in mock trial together too. So we kind of just like we didn't take anything serious, but so basically, we had to argue pro or con for something. And I remember our example being, or like our argument had to be about brick and mortar stores versus online stores. So we had to argue like, is it better to have like an online clothing store or like an actual clothing store in person, basically. So I remember that. I think we did good the first round because they had like different competitions. So it was like regional, state, and then they had nationals. But then we didn't do well at state. I remember. And Miss Marsh, shout out to Miss Marsh, another good teacher. She was like, "Yeah, I feel like you guys need to work more. You guys got really confident by winning the first time," which was probably true. But so FBLA also took me out of my comfort zone because we traveled as a team, so it was more people than mock trial. And I mean, I made a lot of friends, and like the people that I got to hang out with and stuff, like they're all cool people. We would stay in hotels, like all that, traveled. We went to Atlanta, Charleston, like different places. So then my junior year or senior year, I can't remember which one, but I competed in the accounting area, which that was different. Because I was tired of like getting up in front of people and having to speak. So I was like, let me do something where it's just a test. So I did the accounting test because I had an accounting class while I was in high school, and I did really well. Like the regional competition, I think I got second place, and then at nationals I got like fifth or something like that. But it was pretty good. I definitely enjoyed that experience. But I do remember throughout every organization that I was in, like even through church, like we had different things going on with church. Like I was a leader as a youth in my church, and I would have to go to these conferences and, come up with ideas like, what are we going to do next? Like, I remember I put together a community service initiative for us to make these cute, like, baskets with all these goodies for underserved communities, like children mainly. And I remember that was a great initiative. I was also in Girl Scouts, and sorry if all of this is like running together, but as I'm talking, more things are coming to my brain. But I was also in Girl Scouts, and I was a leader in Girl Scouts. And I just, I was taking on a lot of roles because I had been the type of kid who always wanted to overachieve. And I don't know if you guys heard of it, but someone who is like a very functional person with anxiety or a functional person with depression, I was one of those people, like, or I'm still one of those people. I I function really well, and people think, "Oh, she's so happy, like she has a great life," which I'm not saying I don't have a great life, but I have been through a lot of things. I'm not going to touch on um more sensitive topics today because I just want this to be kind of like an introduction to certain things. But I did go through some stuff in high school that I would not wish on anyone else. And I'll just say, you know, it involves like sexual assault. So that's why I was like, I'll wait to talk about that. But yeah. So just get into your mind that coming into college, I had already been experiencing a lot of anxieties just getting into college itself, applying for schools and, you know, writing essays and all that. That also caused a lot of anxiety for me. So I knew that I was anxious, but I never put the word on me that, ooh, you have anxiety. So yeah. And I would say my depression throughout high school wasn't bad. Like, I was never one of those kids who hurt themselves, like cut themselves or anything like that. Like, I never felt suicidal in high school. Like, I never wanted to disappear or anything. Like, when I say things had gotten better, they did. It was just my anxiety was just really high and I didn't know how to manage it. And now, luckily, I do. So, yeah, so that's very much like a soft introduction, I'll say, to my Maniac Mondays. And if you're wondering why I'm calling it Maniac Mondays, I really just like the idea of maniac because some people see it as a violent person. Some people see maniac as just a highly energized person who just has, you know, a lot of energy misplaced everywhere. Some people see maniac as just a crazy person. I mean, however you see maniac, however you want to identify as a maniac, if you do, if you don't, it's fine. I like the word because I think I am a ball of different things. And I think it just represents, you know, maniac, manic. I have bipolar disorder, so I have had those types of episodes. And I think it's better to embrace what you've been through and how you've gotten through it than try to like take it away from you. So if anything you take from this video, you know, look out for yourself. And I want you guys to start doing body scans. One therapist I had taught me how to just, you know, sit and feel for a moment, kind of meditate and just think, okay, how am I feeling in this moment? Especially when when you feel like you're having a crisis, notice how you feel. Notice if you're sweating. Notice if you feel like your mind is racing. Like, notice if your hands are fidgeting. Like, just notice those things that you do when you are having like a really anxious moment. And that's how you'll know, like, okay, this is what I'm doing. How can I like calm myself down to not do these things? And it's not to say that those things are bad, but it's just to say, you know, we want to understand ourselves because no one else is going to understand us in the same way. But yeah, so I just want you guys to listen to your body, listen to when you feel overwhelmed, because when I was in middle school and high school, there was no boundaries. I had no boundaries. I literally would work until I could not work at all. I remember one night, this is my last story. One night I had to finish an 8-page paper for Mr. Rebel's class. Shout out to Mr. Rebel, probably the best English teacher I had at NAFO. Freshman year, my first 8-page paper, it was in the ARP research paper. Shout out to everyone else in that class who knows what I'm talking about. The Assassination Research Project. I did mine on Leon Trotsky, who was a Bolshevik revolutionary. Well, he was actually not a Bolshevik. He might have been a Menshevik. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But he was very influential during that time in Russia, and he was assassinated after World War II or during World War II. But anyway, I had to do a paper on him because I chose him. I don't know why I chose him at the time, but it was a really good project. But I remember, I'm a procrastinator. Remember that, I'm a procrastinator. So I was typing this paper at like 3 in the morning. I fall asleep while I'm typing. My computer, it's like an old laptop, is overheating and it's sitting on my thigh. I don't know how, but it starts to burn my thigh. And literally, I still have a scar to this day because it blistered and everything, and I picked at it. So yeah, I still have a scar because I fell asleep while typing a 8-page paper in the middle of the night. And then I found out that same day or the day before that, I can't remember. So I had to go to a funeral. Yeah, it was before that. So before that, I had to go to a funeral because my great-grandmother had passed away. Rest in peace to her. And that's why partly why I was behind, but I probably should have been finished that paper anyway. But yeah, so her passing away, I had to go to a funeral and everything. So the next day I get to school and I have to go print the paper during lunch because I had to finish it during lunch. And his class was like one of those classes where you start class in his class and then you go to lunch and then you come back to his class. So I was gonna turn the paper in at the end of class. And I like was late by like a minute or two to the classroom because I was trying to print the paper, and I just burst out crying when he opened the door because I just was overwhelmed, and like I literally had got myself to a breaking point, and I didn't even know how or why I let it go on because I was so young. But that's just an example of like, if I had just said, Mr. Rebels, my great grandmother just died. I cannot turn this in time. I'm sure he would have understood. But I was just one of those perfectionist type kids who was like, oh no, I have to get this done on time? So yeah, also don't beat yourself up about certain things. If you need to ask for an extension, do it. But yes, so that's everything for tonight with Maniac Mondays. Please drop a comment on something you want to hear about that I may have touched on but didn't really explain well. Um, I'm trying to work on being more detailed. So if there's something else you think I should discuss from that time period, then I would love to know. The next episode or YouTube video, we're going to talk about college and law school and how like my mental health issues developed in those stages of my life. So thank you. Have a good night. Signing off, the Ravenclaw Queen.